Yeah, hey, it's Phil coming at you. Yeah, right on, for sure, for sure. Hey, got some really basic stuff and some really advanced stuff, all combined right here. We'll talk about the manual valve detent lever. Yeah, it kind of swings both ways, so to say. I'll show you how to put it in the right way. This way you don't have to take it all apart again. TV exhaust pin, yeah. Why we don't need to use it. And the spring that sometimes goes shooting across the room, I'll show you why I get rid of it along with one of the check balls as well. It's probably something you're going to want to do as well. 1-2 accumulator, 3-4 accumulator. Yeah, I'm not using them, but probably you should, or maybe you should. I'll show you how to get rid of them, why to get rid of them, and why to keep them as well. So, yeah, and of course we'll mount our valve bodies. I'll show you where the check balls go. Man, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. Check it out for sure. Look over my shoulder, man. Yeah, we'll have a blast. Right on. Let's go ahead and remove the cup plug from the low reverse housing. Again, some people do it when they install the part. I like to do it when I'm working on the case, and it's actually right down in there in the hole, if we can see it there. Again, just zooming out so you can see where it is. Again, right here. And how I like to do that, I actually like to make a special tool. The low reverse housing seal itself looks like this. It's just a cup, kind of. The seal being over here, of course, the rubber part. A 3/8 of an inch lag screw. Actually fits in quite nice. But the problem is it has a point. So you can see if I extend it in there, the point cuts through the rubber, which is not good. So we have to get rid of that point. So what we'll do is just grind down the end of it so that we just have the threads. We'll go ahead and install it into the case, and then we'll just unscrew, and this will come right out of the case. Again, an easy way to build this tool. And again, we'll just grind off the ends right there. This way we're not coming at a point, which would of course stick through our seal. And we'll just take our bolt over to the grinder, fire up, grind away. And we're good to go. Put it in there. Tap it in the hole. Okay. She got her in there. Let's go ahead and pry it out. I'll just put my pliers on there. Okay, I'm not prying on the aluminum itself. And we'll just pry it out. And she comes out, no problem. Again, super easy way to remove it. Now that we have our seal out, we're going to want to go ahead and put our new one in. And what I like to use is a brass punch. Does it need to be brass? No, absolutely not. But these are good to keep in your arsenal of tools, of course, when you're working with metals you don't want to damage. 5/16 size. You can kind of sort of see, hopefully, with our camera here. There's a little lip right in here on the seal, right in the hole. There's a lip on the edge, and what you want your punch to do is fit onto that lip right here, and not, of course, going all the way through. It's a little big, but that'll get her done also. Again, the point being that you don't want to ruin the surface right here, the rubber surface. So let's go ahead and install that. Go ahead, get her mounted in there. Again, I've dipped it in some transmission fluid. You can see it easily pushes in with just your finger. And we'll just take our punch. See if I can hold her there without blocking you too much on the camera. you'll be able to feel when she goes all the way in. And just for your reference, hopefully you're able to see that. Again, it's just below the surface, but of course touching our low reverse clutch housing. Hey, how about taking a second, like and subscribe, huh? Come on, show some love. Now your 3/4 accumulator goes into here. Now you start out, you'll always have your pin, clean it up good. And the pin goes into the center hole, of course. Now there's two different ways of doing this. Your spring always goes inside, right inside your groove here. By the way, always replace the seal on the outside here, the O-ring seal. Again, there is a rubber seal in your kit. Make sure that you replace it. Always use a brand new one. The spring always goes in here, but it's a matter of spring first and then piston, or piston first, then spring. They varied by model year, and they also varied by performance level. So hopefully you made a note where it came out, either this way or this way. Reality, either one will probably work anyway. It just changes the accumulation speed, which is going to make it softer or more hard shifting. Again, in my application, I'm not using it at all, so I'm going to simply discard it. But if you're using it in your application, simply put it in, like so, and of course push down, and then we'll move on to our separator plate and our mounting as well. So again, it could go piston up or it could go spring up, depending on your application. It's not really going to affect too much if you do it one way or the other. Hopefully you'll have a record of how you took it apart. Of course, be sure to lubricate your seal, right, with the transmission fluid. Again, before putting it in, never install dry. Again, in my application, I'm not using the 3/4 accumulator, so I'm blocking off this hole right here. I'm doing that with a cup plug. Here it is mounted onto a 3/16 punch. Again, I'm just going to put the cup plug into that hole right there, which is blocking off that oil passage, and I'm just going to hit it home with the hammer. Just till she's bottomed out. And as you can see, of course, our cup plug is installed, which in turn blocks the oil feed to the 3/4 accumulator. And by the way, of course, I'm not going to use the pin. Next up, we're going to install the separator plates along with the two gaskets to go with it. Here's the stock one for mine, the CZ it came out of. Again, they made quite a few different ones. Ideally, you want to use the same separator plate and valve body and governor and servo that came out of your model. But reality, over time, a lot of these things got swapped out, shift kits were installed, that kind of thing, so it kind of is what it is. But at a minimum, if you use your separator plates and your valve body and your governor, you're usually pretty safe. Again, in my application, it's going to be modified. I'm using a shift kit as well. I'm using the CK Performance one. I know they've done quite a few different models of shift kits. So again, this just happens to be for the one that I'm using. There are many, so don't necessarily follow my directions, but rather follow the directions with the shift kit that you have, which you're installing. In my case, I need to drill out this hole and this hole to 0.125. That's for the 2-3 upshift. And I have to drill out this hole right here for the 2-3. That's 0.140. And this hole right here for the 1-2 upshift, 0.110. And lastly, I have to drill out this hole here for the 3/4 upshift right here to 0.110. So again, your shift kit, and even if you got it from CK Performance, might be different. So again, always follow the directions and drill out only what you need. And again, bigger hole doesn't mean such a good thing, right? Bigger is not always better in the transmission world. Again, it's better to be smaller when you're drilling than it is to be larger, because again, you could always make a hole bigger, but making it smaller, you have to seal it off and start all over. So it's a bad thing. So again, error on the side of too small, but try and get as close as you can as whatever the manufacturer recommends, but don't go over. When drilling out those precision bits, I like to use my Harbor Freight 60-piece numeric set. Unfortunately, I think they're discontinued by now, but look on Amazon or eBay or whatever. It doesn't have to be Harbor Freight. There's a million different cheap Chinese crap drill bits, which pretty much these are. But again, the fact that they are numbered, I don't know if that's going to show up on the lighting, but each bit is numbered from 1 all the way up through 60. So again, 60 different. It's very accurate, small sizes, and you can look online. You can find a chart like so. It shows you the exact dimensions, right? So a drill size 73 is equivalent to a 0.240 decimal size. So we were looking for a 0.110, for example. So if I look on my chart here, you can see a 0.110 is a drill size number 35. Right, in a standard drill bit kit, you'll either have a 7/64 or a 1/8. So again, in this case, I'm going to use a number 35 for my 110 example. Again, I'm putting a piece of wood underneath, move my separator plate in, drill out our hole here to 110. Don't hit our camera here. And our 110 is done. Let's also drill out our 1-2 here. That one is done. Let's drill out our pair of 0.125s. Now it calls for 0.140, but in reality we don't have anything that's that precise. Number 28 is a smidge too big, so I'm going to err on the side of caution. Instead of using a 28, which is a smidge too big, I'm going to use a 29, which is a 136 instead of a 140. Again, it shouldn't make too much difference, but I don't want to go too big, so I'll use a number 29. Let's drill out our last hole here. Again, although it calls for a 140, I'm using a 37. No big deal. Once you get those holes drilled, just go ahead and get rid of the burrs. Some Scotch-Brite works fine, whatever. And on the flip side, where you have the push through, I like to just take a file, for example, something a little more coarse, and get rid of the burrs on there. Let's go ahead and install our check balls. My shift kit only requests that I install 4 of them. Factory, there were 9, just for your reference. So in my shift kit, the CK Performance one, again, the styles have changed over time, so check with your instructions. But what we want to do is put them in the bathtubs. Basically, it's like this one right here, for example. It looks like a bathtub shape, right? It's kind of a rectangle with rounded edges on them, right? There's a bathtub here. There's another bathtub right here. There's a third bathtub right here. And there's a fourth bathtub right here. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 in my case, but the standard factory one calls for 9 check balls. And again, they're simply metal balls. What I'll do is take some trans gel and I'll throw it into the bathtub, and I'll take a check ball and put it in there. Again, just to make sure that it doesn't fall out, get lost, whatever the case might be. The second one, put it in there. Again, some trans gel. The third one, put it in there. Again, some trans gel. And the fourth one, again, some trans gel. So in my case, once again, I'm using 4 check balls. Check with your shift kit on which ones you're supposed to install. If you're using the stock setup and putting your check balls back where they came in, you'll have 9 check balls. I'll show you those locations now. The first check ball would go into this hole right here. Your second check ball would go into here. Your third check ball is the one that we're actually using, and that would go here. Your fourth, which would go into here. Your fifth, which is for your TV exhausts, we're not using, and most people don't actually. That goes into here. Your sixth, for your reverse and third gear, we're using. That goes into here. Your seventh is actually way down in here. That's installed in the intermediate servo check ball, so it's actually in the capsule itself. So we're using that because we never took it out, so you don't have to install it, and yours probably already has it installed, just for your reference. The eighth is over here. That's what we're using. And our ninth and final one, and we're using that as well. You can see that it's located right here. So again, those are your factory locations. Hey, how about taking a second, like and subscribe, huh? Come on, show some love. Next up, we'll go ahead and mount our separator plate and the gaskets. Before we do that, I like to make guide pins. What I do is take a bolt and I just chop the hex head off, formerly known as the hex head. Right, and then I put them on the grinder and just kind of round them off. So they're good guide pins. And what we use that for is to actually place the separator plate and the valve body itself. It makes it easier, lets us align the valve body itself. Yeah, these thread checkers really make life easy. Again, you can see in a second that that's too big, or that standard doesn't fit, so we know it's metric. M6 1.0, perfect size. Again, super convenient. Again, highly recommend this kit. There's a million made in China ones under all different weird name brands. Very convenient to do thread checking. Again, these are M6-1, M6 by 1 millimeter metric threads, and it's about 3-inch long, and I just made 2 of them. Highly recommend that you do the same for the guide pins. Is it required? No, but it'll make it a lot easier to align, as you'll see right now. Take our 2 guide pins, stick them in 2 holes. Again, that'll help us align our separator plates, gaskets, and valve body. Well, you have 2 valve body gaskets, of course. How do you know which one is which, right? One has the hole, one does not have the hole, right? No hole and hole. Well, they're actually marked for you right up in here. You can see the letter C, C for case. And on the other one, you can see it's labeled VB, as in valve body. So the C, the one with the C, goes on the bottom. In the C, right? Having our guide plates makes it much easier to align. Go ahead and put those on there. Now we'll put our separator plate on there. Again with the guide pins. Simple. And then take your VB, right, the part with your valve body, and again put it on there. If you don't use guide pins, for example, what you could do is put some trans gel, just a little bit on this side and the other side, stick your gaskets to it, and then install all 3 at the same time. That also works pretty well. But again, the guide pins are preferred, and it takes you 10 seconds to make it, and very easy just to find 2 hex screws. So again, do yourself a favor, do whatever floats your boat. Next we have our 1-2 accumulator. Again, this, as you may recall from a previous servo video, is softening the 1-2 shift, right? But we put a stronger servo in this one, for example, so we don't want any extra cushioning. So I'm actually going to get rid of the 1-2 accumulator, and I'll show you how to do that as well. But by factory, there is a 1-2 accumulator. Looks like so. There's 5 screws holding it. These 3 are, let's call them medium sized, right? They go 1, 2, and 3. 1 is small size, that's what goes to the plate, to the housing. And of course 1 is our tall one. Underneath there, we have our pin. This would ordinarily be there. Our piston would be there. And then underneath our piston, we have a spring. Underneath the spring, we have our gasket. And underneath our gasket, we have the, I guess you can say it's a hold down plate. So again, first we install our plate. Then we would install our gasket. Then our spring. Then our piston, right? The piston only goes one way, right? Goes like so. Top of the spring. And then, of course, our housing goes on top of that. Right, so the piston goes inside of there and the spring there. Always replace the seal here, right? Just a rubber seal. It's in your rebuild kit, whichever one you're using. Always replace it, and of course lubricate it a lot before putting it into your housing. Just for reference, there are different housings. I think the older diesel ones, for example, I think they were tapped right here, and there was a different passage in there. This is a middle one, I guess. It's from an 86. I think in 87 they actually changed the layout here and the separator plate as well. And they had a check ball, so you could just shake it, and of course you'd hear the check ball going. Again, they all serve the same purpose. Right, initially your oil feed is going straight through, and it splits off in two directions, right, like in a T. So here's your oil feed, and then it comes in a T. Right, it goes this direction and it goes this direction. This direction over here is your servo, think about it, right? So the pressure comes in, and some of it goes over to the servo. Some of it goes over here and into the accumulator housing, right? It comes in actually into this hole. And then you can see down there, let me get my pointer here. This hole right here is connected internally to this hole. Right, so the oil goes through there, comes out here, and starts pushing the piston closer, right? So this is basically delaying the servo to come on, right? So it's softening the shift, I guess you can say, by delaying it. So in my application, I want a nice hard, firm, and a good shift, so I'm not going to use the accumulator. There are different ways of using the accumulator. For example, you don't have to stop 100% of the flow to it like I'm going to do by deleting it. You could actually just make this hole right here. See how big it is? You could actually make it smaller. What you do is actually tap this for, let's say, 1/4 inch, right? So get a 1/4 inch tap. So now it's a threaded hole. And then what we would do is take a 1/4 inch bolt. This is not a 1/4 inch bolt. It's just an example, of course. And what you do is cut it 1/2 inch long, right? So the 1/4 inch bolt, chop the top off, right? Make it a 1/4 inch long. And then through the end of it, drill all the way through the part that you cut off, right? You have a 1/2 inch long, 1/4 inch threaded bolt. Drill a 1/16 hole through here all the way through. Right, and then with a cutoff wheel, for example, just cut across into it, right? Cut across here and here, just so that you could get a Phillips screwdriver, for example, onto there, so you can tighten it up, or you could remove it if you didn't like the mod. But what you do is take that 1/2 inch nub, I guess you can call it, after you've threaded this hole, and just screw it into there all the way down. Make sure it's past flush. Right? Don't leave it hanging on the top, because that would be bad, right? Make sure that it's slightly past flush. And what you've done is actually taken this hole, whatever size it is now, I don't know, maybe it's a 1/4 inch, and you've reduced it down to 1/16 of an inch, right? Because that's the hole size that we drilled in between. So now this hole is actually smaller, so the delay is going to be less. Your shift is going to be firmer. Not quite as firm, of course, as removing the accumulator completely, but it will be firmer. Now, if you want to remove the accumulator completely, there's a couple different ways to go about that. The first one, you could actually, again, tap this to be a 1/4 inch, and then take the nub. Instead of drilling through the nub, for example, what you could do is just put a little cross with again, a cutoff wheel, a very thin Dremel cutoff wheel, what have you. So you got a Phillips head, right? So you can turn it in. Take the nub that you cut off and just screw it into that tapped hole. Again, go below the surface, right? This way it's not flush. Go below it. This way you're not warping anything. And again, now this hole is blocked off, so your accumulator will not be receiving any fluid into it. You could also go the plate method. Again, the plate method is what I'm doing. Why? Because it came with my kit, to be quite honest. In the CK Performance Accumulator Delete, there's this bottom plate, I guess you can say. Notice it's the bottom because it has your reverse passages, right, cut into there, so very important. You could see it in the standard accumulator housing. Right, it allows the reverse to connect in two pieces. Of course, this way you have a reverse. If you get this backwards, you probably won't have a reverse, right? Because on the separator plate on the valve body as well, you'll find that these two holes are connected for the reverse circuit. So this part would go down, and then it comes with a gasket. goes on top, and then it comes with the cover plate. Again, the cover plate is just blockage. Right, and all this does, of course, is eliminate that passage. Right here, I'll try and hold them up for you. Remember, the passage is right here, right, going into the accumulator. Here you can see it's blocked. So again, it's an easy way to block the accumulator, and that's the way that we're going to use. So let me show you that mounted up. So for the 1-2 accumulator housing, if we were using the standard one, what we do is mount our bracket. We'll go like so. Then we take our standard gasket, mount it like so. And before installing the housing, what comes first is our spring. Spring goes onto there, and then our piston. The piston goes in like so, into our housing bracket. Again, always replace the seal here. I'm not really installing it, I'm just showing you how to do it. I'm using the 1-2 accumulator delete tactic. So again, your piston would go into there. And again, it's a snug fit. Lubricate yours first, not like I'm doing, just trying to jam it in. Then your spring. And then what you do is push it onto here. Get a better angle for you. And of course, you'd have to push it down and then install your 5 bolts. The little tiny one, the smallest, goes into the front piece, and then the 3 of equal size, right, and the large one. The large one obviously goes in the large hole, and the 3 other ones that are equal size go in here, here, and back there, where you're not able to see maybe. And again, you'd want to push this down and then tighten the screws. Don't use the screws to tighten down the spring, but rather hold the spring down and tighten them. This way, again, you're not putting unequal force onto the accumulator housing. That's your simple installation. Again, we're using the delete kit, so I'm not using the accumulator, but that's how you would install it. Again, in my case, I'm doing the accumulator delete. So I have my top plate, my gasket underneath, and the bottom plate. Again, notice the passages in the way this mounts, like so. Again, passages on the bottom. Go ahead and line everything up. Holes are all aligned. That goes like so. 5 bolts, M6. I think these are 25 millimeters long. Go ahead and mount those on there. Again, I'll do that and make it finger tight. And that's installed again, finger tight, so that it still has some play. We'll go ahead and do final torquing later when we do our valve body. Now we want to get our valve body installed. Before we do that, of course, we have 3 check balls that we want to put in. So what you want to do is flip over your valve body, and the 3 check ball locations are actually the big circles. So one goes right here, another one goes right here, and the third one goes right there. So again, looking up at it, we have one goes right here, one goes right here, and one goes right here. Again, that's the factory locations. It's also the same with the shift kit. For a 1-2 really hard shift, so maybe you got a lot of horsepower or a very high stall converter, you could leave this check ball out. I'm not going to in my application, although because I haven't really decided on my torque converter yet. I know it'll be high horsepower, but again, I'm going to leave it in. Better safe than sorry. I could always take it out later if I wanted to. But again, one check ball goes here, one check ball goes there, and one check ball goes there. Now, since we have to flip the valve body over to install it, it's really important that the check balls don't go anywhere. So what we'll do is take trans gel, a lot of trans gel, put it in the hole, and again goop the trans gel on there just to make sure that that check ball does not fall out when we flip it over to install. Same thing on our middle. Again, get it in there good. Take the trans gel, goop it on there. And then we'll take our last one with our trans gel, put it in there. And again, that should keep it from falling out when we go to flip it over to install. Hey, how about taking a second, like and subscribe, huh? Come on. Show some love. First thing I want to do is find your little bracket, I guess you can say. And where that goes is actually in our shifter assembly, right over here on the comb. You can see there's a hole right here for it. And it goes inside there. Bring it around the side. And where's that hole? There it is. And you can see it's in the hole all the way through. And this part of it is actually going to be connected to our valve body. Let's go ahead and install our valve body. Again, make sure your lever is not this direction, but rather in this direction. Take the valve body. Make sure your manual valve right around in the middle. And of course, the circle, the hole right here, is going into that detent lever. So let's put it over our guide pin. As we're sliding down, go ahead and move our manual lever, move our detent into our manual valve, swing it into place, let it go down. Once you get it down, check for clear movement. Should be full. And then what we want to do, you'll have 4 long bolts and you'll have 11 short bolts. The 4 long bolts go in a line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and drop them in. Then your 11 shorter bolts go in the remaining holes. To start off with the rooster, take out our guide pin. And this gear selector detent, I guess you can call it, is the official name. Notice on the end, there's a little tab right there. That little tab goes into this hole. Right, this is a bolt hole. This is for the tab. So take your tab, put it into the hole, and put the roller into one of the slots on your gear selector. Ideally, the last one. Right, your last one with your manual valve all the way in. And then one of the 11 bolts. Put it in there. Again, replacing our guide pin. Then I like to take the other bolt and replace the other guide pin as well. And again, just do them hand tight. This right here is actually for our throttle linkage, and we'll put that in last. But again, find your bolt holes. Put the 11 in. This is for our pressure switch, we'll do later. There's our 11 bolts. Now what we'll do is we'll just tighten them down hand tight, and then we'll go back later and we'll torque everything. Again, we haven't wired in our TCC, right? Our torque converter clutch solenoid that goes in here, and the associated wiring that goes through it. There's also brackets, so I'll show you that in a future video. So that's why we don't really want to torque it right now. But again, tighten them all hand tight, and we'll torque them later. One other thing to note, your application might be using the oil pipe. Again, I'm using a CK Performance Shift Kit, which has me delete the oil pipe and actually put a cup plug into this hole over there. So I'm not using the bracket or the oil pipe. If you're using the oil pipe, now is when you'd want to install it. It goes in these two furthest holes, the ones without the bolts. Again, there's a cup plug here, so it won't fit in mine, but this one is open, so it would go like so. And then this bracket would attach to underneath the comb, if you will, right? So underneath this bolt, you would put your bracket, and that of course would hold on your oil pipe, like so. So again, like this is how it would be installed. So again, if you're using the oil pipe, that's how you put it in. Don't forget to do that, or you'll have a leak, I suppose. Let's take a couple seconds and go through the throttle lever and bracket assembly. Many times when we're taking these apart, taking them out of the transmission, the spring goes across the room, or it falls apart and we forget how to put it together. And it can be a little bit tricky, actually. I'll show you what it looks like before and after. In reality, most builders, many builders, probably most builders, will leave these out. The cotter pin looking thing, I guess it's officially called the TV exhaust lifter, and the spring itself, along with check ball number 5, which is your TV exhaust check ball. Most people will actually leave those out. Most shift kits will call for it, for example. So in my application, I'm actually leaving these out as well, so it's a non-issue. But again, maybe you're trying to keep it the way it was, or you're leaving the check ball in, or whatever the reason. I'll show you how to put it back again as factory. Real quick, your TV link looks like this. You can see one side is bent in an L, right, a 90-degree angle, and the other side is more of a wiggly angle, I guess you can say. Yeah, let's go with that. Basically, take your wiggly angle, and there's a little hole here. See in the side. Take your wiggly angle, put it into the hole from the outside, and it just dangles there. It's actually pretty ingenious because it won't actually come out once it's inside the transmission. And this right here connects to the TV cable once we get it all mounted up in our car, that kind of thing. So just for your reference, that's how it goes. But to put this piece back in, this part, the cotter pin looking thing, goes into this oval right here. And you can see it from this end. And it actually mounts in here. We put the spring there actually, but I'm showing you without the spring so it doesn't shoot across the room. Then I'll show you with the spring. So this piece actually goes in here, this little groove, and this oval part goes into the oval. Right, so just drop it into the oval, and then this part comes over like so. Right, so it looks like this. Right, so let's assemble it with the spring now. Put your spring over the top of the cotter pin. Hold it good down. Bring your throttle level down. Right, so your oval part is through there, and your single pin is through there, and you've got your spring all the way on the top. This part goes through there. That's the way it's supposed to be assembled. Let's take it over to the valve body and install it as well. So here's our bolt hole right there. This link will end up going through this hole right here, and we'll put our TV cable on later on. This pin right here actually is going to go over here in this little gap there. When we install it, it'll go like that. And this pin, right, our single pin, is going to go, this pin is going to go in this hole right here. See, there's a hole. So that pin actually goes into that hole. And that's how this thing is mounted. So what you want to do is take it across. First line up that pin, like so. Then move over the rest of your part. But before you do that, make sure you put your link on, right? Make sure you put your link on. Again, there's two sides. Don't use the L side, but rather use the squiggly side through the bracket. If you don't put it on now, you won't be able to put it on. Right? Then move it over. Put that pin through the hole. And then work your way over like so. Then you're fine. Take your bolt. Tighten her up. Just a little 10 millimeter. Just like finger tight. You don't need to go more than finger tight because we're going to torque it anyway. By the way, I love these little, this is a Titan actually. Rotisserie ratchet, I guess you call it, a 1/4 inch. Great little tool. Anyway, now you can see it's working. Real quick on how this is working. The lever keeps our pin all the way up, right, when there's no TV whatsoever. So our cable must have broken, for example, right? There's no, this isn't even touching the valve, right? As soon as we do touch the valve, however, you could see the spring force is pushing it down, right? The spring force is pushing it down. So that's putting our check ball down as well. Right, so right here the check ball is not seated. Right, the check ball would be underneath there. So we have a broken cable, for example. But when there is cable, like so, you can see that pin is actually forced down. So it's keeping the check ball off the seat. And even if we go to full throttle, it's still, the spring keeps it there. So it's only off the seat when we lose throttle. That's simply how it works. Again, I'm going to take this off and not use it for my application. And I just went ahead and reinstalled it. Again, removing that cotter pin piece. Again, I'm not using the check ball, so it serves no purpose. So remove the spring and the lever. Let's go ahead and torque down our bolts. Yes, I know there's still more brackets for our wiring and stuff that I'll do in a future video. So I'm going to torque them down anyway, and then later on we'll come back and untorque them. I'm simply using a 1/4 inch torque wrench with a 10mm socket. It's set to 115 inch-pounds. It's about 13 Newton meters for you metric folk. And what I like to do after I'm done torquing the bolt, I like to use a Sharpie. This one's metallic red. And again, what I like to do is mark the bolt so that I know it's been torqued. So I've already torqued this one, so I just mark it. And then again, as I'm going around, I know if I've missed any because I haven't marked it. And I do like to keep a lot of the Sharpie metallics around. Again, doing transmission work or working with metal in general, it's always good to have multiple colors depending on the surface material. Sometimes silver shows up on black, for example, but black obviously doesn't show up on black, and silver, of course, won't show up on silver, so gold does, and the list goes on. Anyway, another nice little tool to keep in your arsenal. And to do the valve body, what you want to do is start in the center and go around in a sphere, in a circle. So starting in the center, working your way around the outside. And I'm going to do the valve body first, follow it up with the accumulator assembly or delete plate in my case. So here we go. Again, 115 inch-pounds. When it clicks, we're good. And all of our bolts are torqued, and we should be good to go.